Hello, my name is Harish Menon. I'm a senior program manager with Power Automate. I manage the different ways in which Power Automate integrates with other products like Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Power BI, Power Apps, and so on. Today, we're here to talk about how you could use Power Automate along with Microsoft Teams to automate a lot of your business processes and make it seamless in this remote world that we're all working in. Like I mentioned at the top, the way we're working has fundamentally changed in the last few months. Satya famously said, we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months. In this new time, the tools that we're using and the way that we're using our products has fundamentally changed. But individuals still need to stay productive. Organizations need to adapt to these new business processes. And more importantly, the processes need to modernize so that they're more easily applicable to your employees and your workforce. The two primary ways we've seen that really accelerate in the past few months has been Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Power Platform. Teams is where everyone's getting their work done now, be it through chat, through meetings and callings, or even apps that are integrated directly into Teams. And our day-to-day usage of Teams has seen a lot of growth in the past few months. Power Platform is how we're helping you complete that circle and integrate your processes directly into Teams without having to switch your context into multiple apps or services. Power Platform, which combines Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and PVA, Power Virtual Agents, lets you integrate these business processes and create your own more seamlessly. If you look at how Power Platform fits into the overall Microsoft Teams platform, Microsoft Teams today already comes with a bunch of ready-made apps and services, be it from Microsoft itself and also a number of third-party and ISV providers. And you can also build full code custom solutions for yourself, which are way more in-depth in terms of like having to code and creating your own APIs, etc. Where Power Platform fits is in the middle of these two. It provides a low-code platform for you to bring your processes which have been in the real world into the virtual world. This can mean creating your own Power Apps to sort of embed that within Teams, creating your own processes with Power Automate, and or creating chatbots through Power Virtual Agents. Today, we're primarily going to talk about the various new integrations that we've introduced into Microsoft Teams with respect to Power Automate. We recently introduced a trigger that allows you to trigger a flow directly from any message within Teams. We've added we basically updated our Power Automate app so that it's easier for you to manage your flows or even create new ones from within Teams itself with minimal input so that you can get going way more easily. And more importantly, you can help your teammates in your organization get going way more easily. And I'll come to some of those improvements in a bit. We have a few new Teams triggers and actions as well, things like creating a meeting or creating a team itself. And we've also added a separate app for just approval support. So now you can natively manage your approvals or create your own approvals directly within Teams. This can again be done from anywhere within Teams, which is one of the greatest parts about this integration. Okay, let's talk about triggering a flow from any Teams message. Messages are the fundamental way in which anything starts within Teams, be it providing an update for your Scrum, talking about a new opportunity or a new sales lead that might have occurred, reporting an issue that might be there in your product. All of these today come in as Teams messages. So we felt it was important for you to have a starting point for these messages, so you can basically start a process from these messages. So say you have a person discussing a new sales lead within a channel. If you wanted to create an opportunity out of this in Dynamics, instead of switching context and going to Dynamics and creating something there, we wanted to introduce an ability for you to like kick off that process directly from within Teams. So we've introduced this new trigger for Teams called for a selected message, which basically allows you to collect some information from the user. For instance, in this case, we're looking at creating a basic task from a message and using the message details within that task. So things like who sent the message, what the message details are, who's been mentioned, and so on and so forth. You can use any of the details within that message as an entry point for your process. So you could, for instance, if there's a message that says, please review a contract, you can just kick off a little action that says, create a task so that I know that I have to get back to this later. Or in my original example, if you have something along creating an opportunity for a sales lead, you can create a Dynamics or a CDS entity directly from a message. That's the power of this trigger. Next, we have the Power Automate app in Teams. We've had the Power Automate app in Teams for a while now, but we've introduced some major updates to it in the recent past. The main thing being we have a brand new home and create experience. The home experience allows you to sort of gives you a view of all your flows in a single place. So things like what are my active flows, which ones are enabled, which ones are disabled, who it's shared with, what teams they're part of, all of this information in a single hub right within Teams itself. So if you wanted to like quickly create a flow or quickly manage a flow or disable a flow or even see what the status of it is, you can do all of that right from within Teams and not have to leave your application, not have to leave Teams and open a separate browser instance and so on. If you wanted to see the full power of like you wanted to use the full portal experience of Power Automate app, you can always, of course, have an entry point to go from here to that full experience too. Next, we also have a brand new create experience built into Teams. What this does is it allows you to quickly and easily browse templates within Teams and get started without having to go through the entire edit process. We've introduced a much more lightweight diet designer experience, which basically lets you specify the parameters that are specific to that template and just enter those without having to see the full editor experience if you don't wish to do so. If you wanted to go modify that in the full-fledged editor experience, we do provide an entry point for that as well. But this is a way in which your teammates, your organization can quickly get access to a template without having to worry about the nitty-gritties of the full editor experience. And then we have the new teams, a fair few new teams actions, which lets you automate even more. One of the key ones that a lot of you have been asking for, which we've introduced now, is create a Teams meeting. This lets you kick off a Teams meeting from any trigger that's present already within Power Automate. This can be external, things like when Azure DevOps work item is created, or when an issue is filed in a ICM management, or when a new sales deal is created. You can kick off these Teams meetings and all the details required for that, things like the join link for the Teams meeting and so on, are present as part of this action itself. So you don't have to worry about it. It's as easy as creating a regular invite. The next one is getting at mention tokens. So mentioning users is a very easy way for you to get at the attention of somebody within Teams. If there are a lot of activity within Teams, sometimes it can get lost in terms of like what needs my attention versus what's not. Mentions are a great way for you to sort of specify that, hey, this needs to be looked at right now. And so we've made it even more simpler for you to include a mention within a message itself, so that it's super easy for you to continue with that, with like to get the attention of a user. And finally, we have a create a team action, which is rolling out in preview as we speak, which lets you basically create a team on the fly for any new project or new endeavor that your organization might take. So this can again be controlled by other events that happen across your different products and services. So things like if there is an incident that has happened for your service, you could have a flow that's running that says create a team and schedule a Teams meeting and get all the people that are necessary for that call all in the same space. And once the incident is resolved, you can actually go ahead and close that team out. So that way, it's sort of creating a process for how you want to operate within Teams. And so we are making sure the right triggers and actions are in place so that you can specify those processes as you see fit for your organization. And finally, approvals is one of the most commonly used features in Power Automate. We wanted to make it a first-class experience within Teams. So we've now natively integrated approvals within Teams as its own dedicated app. You can kick off an approval from anywhere in Teams, right from the compose box. So this can be in a one-on-one chat message. It can be within channels. You can specify who the approval is meant for. You can even add attachments and so on. And all of that has a single hub within Teams itself where you can manage what approvals are pending on me versus what approvals have I sent out that are still pending on like approvals. And you can even like approve a request right from there and have a filter view that says what's pending versus what's not. So it's a single hub where you can view all your approvals in a single space. And let's see all of that in action. So I'm going to switch to a demo right now. Let's go. To start things off, let's look at our new trigger that we specified that's called for a selected message. There's a bunch of templates that we introduced for this particular trigger, and this is just one of them. And you can actually browse and see many more as you browse through all our template gallery. So the for selected message lets you create a very simple form that you want to show the user, collect information, use the message details within the actions itself, and then if you want, post a confirmation back to the user. So in this particular case, we have a for selected message trigger that's creating a task and notifying the user that a task has been created. You can see here, like, creating this form can be very, very simple. When you say edit adaptive card, we basically show you a simple view of what the task looks like. So things like a title, a due date, and so on. And to add any additional inputs in here, all you need to do is drag and drop. So if you wanted to add like a description section, you could just drag and drop that, call this description. So I'm just going to rename this. And you can add another input field in here that says, that specifies like a description field. And if you want to make it multi-line, it's a simple checkbox. So you don't need to modify, you don't have to like know how to code. It's very easy drag and drop experience. And you can do anything you want, like sort of collect these inputs from the user and start off a process from a Teams message. So things like if you wanted to edit like the placeholder text saying, enter a description for this task. And you could change the spacing if you wanted to. You don't want it to be that high. You make it a small spacing so it's aligned a little better. And all you need to do is give it an ID. So you can call it my description and say save. And that form is saved and now will show up in Teams for anyone who's kicking off that process. In terms of what this trigger gives you, in addition to the inputs that you specified within the form itself, the trigger also contains all the details of the message itself. So things like who it was, like who sent the message, what the message details are, etc., are all present in this particular trigger. So if you go into the dynamic tokens, you can see what all is visible. So things like what the message ID is, what the display name of the sender is. So you can include things like who sent this message in addition to the task title in your experience. And there's even handy things like a link back to the message. So if you wanted to create, say, an opportunity in Dynamics, or if you wanted to create a task in Azure DevOps, it provides you the ability to anchor it back into Teams to the message that started it all. So everything from like your team ID, channel ID, and even the inputs that you specified are available as these dynamic tokens, which you can include back in your task. In this particular case, once the task is created, we're also notifying the user who sent this particular task that the task was successfully created. So let's see this in action within Teams itself. So now if I switch to Teams, you can see here I'm in a channel for human resources, and we have a message here that says, check out the results for the onboarding satisfaction survey. And I might want to make this a task in my experience. So in order to access any flow that uses this trigger, all you need to go is go into the ... of that message, go into more actions, and any flow that has that trigger shows up in this particular more actions menu. And if you notice, the name that we specified for this particular flow is how it's reflected within the more actions menu as well. So if I go into more actions, hit create a task, it now brings us this new form that we created, and you can specify your task details, things like new onboarding update, and you can specify a due date, say 8, and hit submit. And now that has gone and created this particular task for you, and you will be notified. As you can see, you'll be notified that this task was successfully created. So if I go back into my flow, you can see here, I have the information that the task was successfully created with the title and the due date that I specified. And just to prove that it actually exists, if I switch back to my team and go into my benefits channel, which is where this planner board is pinned, if I switch to that particular planner tab, you can see the new task that we created present over here. So it's in the to-do items bucket. So it says new onboarding document created. If you wanted to, you could add more details in here to sort of flesh this out even further, but that's up to you and your organization on how you want to manage that process. Next, let's look at the brand new Power Automate app within Teams. As you can see here, it's pinned to my left trail. You can take any app within Teams, just right click it and pin it or unpin it right from the menu. So in this case, I'm just going to switch to my Power Automate app. As you can see here, we have a brand new home experience. It's still work in progress. We're making this experience a little bit more better as we see, but I just want to give you an early preview of what it looks like. Here you can see it gives you a list of all your flows, and you have the capabilities to enable or disable them as you see fit. You can edit them right within here if you wanted to. And we also give you a few templates, like popular templates that you can start off with. In addition to this home tab, we've also created a brand new create experience. So if I switch to that tab, we've created this new experience for you to be able to like browse through your templates right from within Teams. And we've made the acquisition process of these templates super simple. So you can come in here, choose a particular template for you to get started from, and the experience of creating that template is very different within Teams. So if I click into one of these, you can see here it gives you a small editor that says what's the flow name you want to give to this. So I'm just going to call this create bug perhaps, and it already does the connection checks required for this particular flow. When I hit continue, the experience is a lot different. So instead of giving you the full flow editor where you see all the necessary steps and finding out which steps need what parameter, etc., we just surface the parameters that are required by this particular flow. And all you need to do is specify those parameters and you're good to go. The advantage here is it's a lot easier for someone who's new to Power Automate to sort of onboard into this experience. But if you wanted the full power to sort of modify that flow steps, add conditions or add loops as you see fit, you can just hit edit in advanced mode and you'll get the full-fledged Power Automate experience within Teams as well. In this particular case, I just want to get started from here. So I'm just going to choose the organization that I want this particular bug to be created in, and I will choose issue tracker. And when I hit create flow, that flow is created for me and I'm good to go. There you go. Just to prove that this is actually happening, I'm going to hit done and switch back to my home tab. You can see here the flow that we created is present right here. And the great advantage of this is you didn't have to go through this experience where you had to like modify the flow, choose the specific parameters, etc. But if you wanted to, you still have the ability to do so. All you needed the user to give you in this case was the Azure DevOps project and Azure DevOps org that you wanted to create this work item in, and you're good to go. Next, let's look at some of the new actions that are present as part of this update. So if you remember, we had a flow that allowed you to specify um, when a new team member is added to sort of send a welcome message for that user. So as you can see, that's a great addition. But like, what if you want to like spruce that up a little further? Because that person is new to the team, they might not know where to go to look for particular resources, or even that they've been welcomed in this particular message, so to speak. So in this case, we modified that flow slightly to add a mention object, and so that gives you the ability to sort of showcase this new mention action as well. So if you go in here, it's the exact same flow, but with the added action of get @mention token for a particular user. So in here, you can see all it asks for is the ID of the user who wants to be mentioned, and it generates this new mention token object that can be embedded in any text field that is sent into Teams. So this can be a post a message function. It can be a post as a flowbot action. It can be post to a channel, post to a person. Any of these combinations work with this particular mention token. If you look at the output of this particular mention, it's actually super simple. It's at email ID /add, but under the hood, when Flow recognizes that there's a mention being used in this particular flow, we basically add the necessary parameters to make sure that Teams understand that this is a mention object and the person requires to be like mentioned along with the necessary notifications and so on. So let's see this in action. I'm going to go back, and this is for the operations team. So I'm going to switch back to Teams. And within the operations channel, I'm going to add a user. In this case, let's add Diego. And as a member, and we're good. All right. So if I go back to my flow, it now sort of monitors that particular team, checks whether new members have been added. It can take a little while for that flow to sort of recognize that a new member has been added. It can take up to 2 minutes. So I'm just going to give it some time. While that happens, I'm going to show you some of the other new actions that we've built. So this is a process that we've built for our hypothetical team, which can be copied over, or you can sort of take a modification of this for your own organizations. The idea here is to create this sort of bridge that's available for people to post issues which are like of great severity. So we have an emergency teams meeting flow here that says whenever a new channel message is added to our issue tracker team, which is in this case critical response report issues here. If you report anything in there, we start a new process for you to like manage this particular issue. So this can be used in like industry settings where like to report issues like machine malfunction or like oil leaks and so on, or even in software settings where you want to when you want to create bridges for like ICMs and so on. So the process that we've created for ourselves here involves creating a channel. You can see here what it does is it already takes the message body into account of what you're trying to create. It then uses the events connector to find out when the necessary people are available and creates a meeting on your behalf in the account along with all the necessary parameters. So in this case, once it finds the meeting time, it goes ahead and creates a Teams meeting. So this, you can see here, this is a new action we've introduced recently. It's still in preview. It's rolling out to public region. So here you can see it basically creates a meeting called emergency meeting along with the details of the message that was posted. And you can have information like what details you want to provide to the user, what the time zone is, and so on and so forth. And the advantage here is it also adds the necessary things like adding a Teams meeting join link and making sure that all the necessary information to create a Teams meeting is present as part of the body itself. So let's also see that in action. So if I go back in here, this is our report issues channel. I'm going to start a new message in here that says in factory. And just send this out. Again, now Flow sort of monitors this and says, is there a new message here? And it kicks off the necessary elements of this process. So if I go back to my Flow and go in here, you can see. Okay, so you can see here that message is triggered off this flow, and you can see it started running. And if you come in here, you can see that the flow has actually finished running and is successfully done. So if you can see here that it picked up the team, the details, it created the necessary channel, in this case, oil leak in factory, made the channel for you, and also like created the meeting for you. And if I then let me just go in here, and you can see here it created the necessary Teams meeting as well. And if I go back into my Teams environment, you can see here there's a new channel that's been created. If I switch into that, it's based on the message that I just sent out called oil leak in factory. And when I click into that, you can see here this is a space for people to start talking about the issue. And if I go into my calendar, you can see here that's already created this meeting, emergency meeting, oil leak in factory. And if I click into it, the join link is already present. So everything needed for sort of starting this bridge and getting the right people in the call is present there, along with like the details for joining this particular meeting. And if I expand, you can see it's added the necessary people that need to be part of this call. And you didn't have to do any of this work to sort of add this team meeting as well. You could just use that as a queue, and it added the necessary join links, etc., everything in this place. So people have a space to like sort of come in and address this issue. And so this is a process we've created. You can have different processes like this. For instance, you could use this for like creating recurring meetings like stand-ups or status meetings and so on. Have some of the triggers that sort of kicks off the process. Next, let's look at approvals. So like I mentioned, we now have a dedicated app within Teams for approvals. So this is the home for all your approvals within Teams. You can see approvals that you've sent out, approvals that have been received, and so on. And the process for creating these approvals is present no matter where you are in Teams. So this could be within a chat message or within a channel message. You can kick off an approval everywhere. And the process of creating it is super simple. You don't have to create a flow. We do all of that in the background on your behalf. We create the approval object, etc. So let's see this in action. So let's see the process of creating this approval as well. So if I switch back to Teams, And let's pick a channel let's look at process improvements and training. So if I go in here and say new conversation, we now have this new entry point right below the compose box that can be used to kick off an approval. So in this case, I'm going to just say, let's start an approval. And you can see here, it's super simple. All you need to give it is a request title, who your approvers are, and you're good to go. So if I come in here and say, let's call it new training document update, right? And you can specify who the approvers here are. So you can just start typing the person's name and it'll autofill for you. You can specify, in this case, you want Diego to approve. You can say review the document. And hit send. And what this does is it creates the approval on your behalf, sends it out to Diego, and Diego gets a notification in his Teams instance and can go back into this approvals experience to sort of see that in action. Like, as you can see here, it initially comes in this requesting state, and once the approval is successfully created, it updates itself and says requested. It specifies who created this approval for you, both within the card itself as well as in the header, saying Pete, in this case, has created an approval and send this out to Diego. Anybody who comes in here can sort of view the details of the approval by just clicking into it and seeing that in a task module. You can see what the title is, what the description is, and who requested it. And if you go into the approvals experience, you can see here you have your active requests. So in this case, I've sent out two. The one that we just created called new training document. And again, you can click in here, view the full details of the approval if necessary, and cancel the request too if you wanted to. And the other thing is, for instance, I've already received one from Diego in this case, and I want to approve that particular request. I can click into it, view all the details, and add the necessary, like you take the necessary action of either approving or rejecting this particular approval. So in this case, you can even add attachments to approvals. In this case, I already also have a document which you can open and view and so on. So I'm just going to say looks great and say approve. And this submits the response, updates the details within the approvals app, as well as notifies the necessary user in this case. So you can see here the status switched to approved, everything's good. And if I go back to my Teams instance, in this case, I created that in my test channel. So let's go back into test. You can see here the status of that particular thing that we just approved has changed to approved. So that way, even Diego, who's in this case requested the approval, is notified that, hey, the approval is done. And you can even view details to see, did Pete, in this case, add any details? So you can see, have like a timeline view. So if you have multiple approvals, you can even see that as different steps within the approval as well. So in this case, Pete has approved it. He said it looks great. Diego was the person who originally requested it, and you can see like a timeline view of this right within Teams. Again, don't have to move anywhere. And this can be kicked off from anywhere, right? So it can be within this channel, it can be within a chat one-on-one with your manager, or in your organization's team where you want to like sort of have a leave request process or something like that. All of this can be now done natively through approval support within Teams. And finally, let's look at the status of that initial process that we created at the start of this demo, which is we added Diego to the operations team, and we want to sort of help him get onboarded. So if you go into your announcements channel here, you can see here we have both the messages present. So I wanted to show you a difference between like the one without a mention versus one with a mention. So in this case, this is the one without the mention. So it has all the details necessary for welcoming that user. So you can say things like what that person's role is, where they'll be located, and information like to stop by and say hello and so on. But in this particular case, Diego wouldn't be notified that this message was even sent out. But in the one with the mention, you can see here, it's the same message, but there's also a mention present now, and all the details of that user, things like who he is and what we viewing that people card, everything that you expect to see as a mention within Teams is available for you to utilize as well. And so in here, like Diego would get notified and can respond and so on and so forth. And so this can be used for other processes as well. So things like escalation chains where you might want to like notify your manager, or things like incident requests where like you might want to notify the person in charge of a factory or of a warehouse and so on, like mentioning them so that they get notified when like an incident happens within like a process, like reporting issues and so on. You can use mentions as a quick way to grab people's attention. And so that's something that we wanted to showcase. So that's all the demos. We wanted to make sure So all of these are in preview right now. They'll be rolling out over the next few weeks into available for everybody to use. Some of the actions are already in preview right now, and you can actually start using them today. So those are all the demos, and we have learning modules available for you to like get started with Power Automate. There's information on the new trigger that we introduced that lets you kick off a flow from any Teams message. There's our Teams connector documentation where everything around new actions and new triggers and like limitations and issues, etc., all present. And there's general Power Automate documentation where you can get information on the various different types of connectors we provide, the different types of flows specific to approvals, and so on and so forth. So these are some useful resources for you to get started using Power Automate and Teams together. We'd also like you to obviously get involved. We have the Power Automate community where people can post questions, connect with peers who have used Power Automate for ages or who are just getting started with Power Automate. There are people there who you can ask questions to. You can post ideas in there, like get other people inspired, get us inspired. This is a common place that we go to sort of see what new asks you have of us and sort of take that into our account and then sort of figure out how to release that and ship that and so on. So it's a place that we keep going to sort of get inspired by you guys. And it's always great to see how some of these tools, like these new actions, etc., are being utilized by you in the community, and novel ways in which like we've seen like these processes get converted into a purely digital process. And that's all I have. I hope the session was useful. Please do try out the new tools as they roll out. Super excited for what you do with it. Thank you.